What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, where I'm going to be breaking down all the things that happened at AEW All In London. Just went down. I'm going to break down the results of all the matches, my thoughts on everything that happened. A lot of interesting things happened, a lot of things that I don't really have too much to talk about. It's kind of across the board here. If you don't know who I am and you can't see on your screen right now and you are completely oblivious, I am Tony Mango. Follow me at Tony Mango all over the different places out there. Rob and Callum are not joining me on this podcast. It is a solo edition because Rob is covering the media coverage stuff and Callum is over there actually in the stadium. Hopefully having a really good time there. It seems like it was a good time for him based off of the little bit that I had chatted with him during the show. But we'll get some opinions from Rob and Callum probably around like the hot tags or so for this next episode or something. They'll be able to chime in one way or another. But in the meantime, I am going to give my opinions and I want you to give yours as well. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you are live and you are able to join us for the live chat that goes along with that, then in particular, hit up these super chats so that way I can pay attention to that, because when it comes up as a little different thing on there. I'll read all those out loud and chat it up in the meantime. If you want to do anything else on something like the Discord server, that's something, of course, that you can always be chatting things up about that. And keep in mind all the other things you should be clicking on that are positive to help us out on the YouTube channel's algorithm and all the monetary side of things. If you want to donate some money our way, we got the Patreon, we got the YouTube channel membership subscription, Darkcast tier, Pick Your Poison tier, whatever it might be. You can toss a little spare change our way through the thanks button as well, and those super chats that I mentioned before. Redbubble and TeePublic are where you can get your merchandise if you want to get something like a t-shirt or whatever as well. Lots of different designs, lots of different products to slap those designs on for not only Smark Out Moment, but A Mango Tees and for Fanboys Anonymous. Of course, if you know what Fanboys Anonymous is, go ahead to fanboysanonymous.com and check that out. But let's start getting into some of this here. And let's see what the guy 123 in the chat already sending something. I only watched the final match. What a match that was. Reminded me of Chris Benoit winning the world title, but I still think that Benoit's meant more. I was not watching Benoit's at the time, like live and whatever. That's during the era that I wasn't watching. But based off of the accounts from everybody that seems to be having watched that at the time, seems like that was, obviously a monumental deal and all. This definitely felt like it was a very, very important one. And I don't know how the, stand-up test of time that this is going to be, especially when it comes to Bryan and being champion. We know that he hasn't had the best track record of holding championships over the past 10 plus years, given the big spotlight at WrestleMania 30. And soon enough after, he has to go down with an injury. Next year around, you give him the Intercontinental Championship. He has to retire in that way. And I kind of hope that that's not going to be anywhere remotely close to what happens here. But he is planning, I guess, to retire at some point in 2025. So we're going to see how that plays out into that. But that's the very end of this. Spoiler alert if you plan on clicking on this for some reason without knowing what happened and all. But yeah, let's break down the 0 hour matches first. And we had 3 matches on the 0 hour to cram in as many people as possible. The first one was a 16-man tag team match. Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington, Kip Sabian, Rocky Romero, Kyle Fletcher, Leo Rush, Action Andretti, and Top Flight's Darius and Dante Martin were successfully victorious. It's stupid. Over Private Party, Dark Order, Satnam Singh, Jay Lethal, Anthony Ogogo, Ariya Daivari. This was a melee of a bunch of different people that I didn't thought necessarily needed to be on the card, but I guess they felt like, hey, we got some time, let's put them in there and all. And I don't mind when that happens. It's a do-nothing match. People flipped around and did some stuff, and then that's the end of it. It really, I can't judge much on it. It was just sort of a match to whet everybody's appetite. It seemed fine enough. Same thing with the mixed tag team match afterward. Willow, Nightingale, and Tomohiro Ishii were successfully victorious, as I would say, over Kris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. That means that Willow Nightingale is going to be able to defend her title, the CMLL Women's World Championship, over Statlander at All Out in a stipulation that she gets to choose now that she won this match alongside Ishii. So no indication of what that stipulation is yet, but I guess that's going to be something we're going to roll into Dynamite or maybe Collision or maybe even Rampage, Depends on how much they want to cram other stuff into the episode and how quickly they want to just announce that. Because we do have some time. It's September 7th. It's not too much time to get into dawdling, but eventually we're going to find out what that stipulation is. It's probably happening as quickly as Dynamite. No announcement for here, at least. And then there was a 10-man tag team match. Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, the Von Erichs, and Katsuyori Shibata defeated the Undisputed Kingdom's Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Cage of Agony, Brian Cage, and the Gates of Agony tag team. Toa Leona and Bishop Khan, for anybody who doesn't know who they are. Another match that just was a match. Like, these matches, again, they don't really mean much, even if they have stipulations or stakes attached, like the mixed tag team match. They're just a means to get people to perform in front of the crowd and to give something to the pre-show audience to kind of keep that entertaining and to, you know, pop the crowd in some way and sort of start building momentum. I think they did a fine enough job. They had Kevin Von Erich come out. He helped out the baby faces at the end and just did a claw. So, you know, you get a little bit of nostalgia pops once in a while. They got a couple more of those a little bit later on too. And then there was another segment to tap this whole thing off. And it was Saraya coming out with Harley Cameron and some family and friends or whatever. I didn't recognize most of them, but, you know, Saraya's family was part of it. And she cut a promo about how she's the real Queen of England and whatnot, and she deserves respect and blah, blah, blah. And that was basically just a vessel for Jamie Hayter to return and to go after her and everybody else. And she didn't wrestle a match, but she got her hands on her for a moment. So kind of assume that Jamie Hayter and Saraya are going to have a match on Dynamite or Collision or something, and that's going to be a feud going forward leading into, I'm assuming, the next World Championship match, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen at All Out, but it might. Depends on how much they want to rush it. So I liked the idea that they did this whole Jamie Hayter return thing. I'm not like super, oh my God, Jamie Hayter's the best wrestler that's ever existed, like a lot of other people were in a lot of different ways, but it's cool to see that, you know, people make their return and more people on the roster means more variety. So there's no downside to Jamie Hayter returning, and it's a cool moment for a lot of different people. So overall, I thought the 0 Hour was, you know, thumbs up kind of thing. Not the most impactful and biggest, you know, at the end of the year, going to write this down on a whole bunch of different lists and stuff. But yeah, there's positives to it. Then they went into their introductions at the end of the pre-show leading into the main show for the 4-way London Ladders match. AEW World Trios Championships on the line. Patriarchy defending against the House of Black, the Bang Bang Gang, and the team of Blackpool Combat Club and PAC, which I had said on the previews for this that was the team that I was hoping would come out of this victorious. And actually they did. It was kind of surprising. I didn't think that PAC and Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta were going to be winning the championships, because we already know that PAC is going to be fighting for the international title at All Out, and that they had not been a team prior to this, and that more than likely this would have been Death Triangle and not Claudio and Wheeler in this match too. So there was a lot of moving parts, but I thought that it was a fun enough match. You throw a bunch of people in a big multi-man ladder match, and people are going to get thrown around. They're going to go through tables and stuff. It's hard to dislike that in a lot of ways. So I enjoyed the segment for what it was. I like that PAC and Blackpool Combat Club are the new tag team champions for the trios titles. And I'm kind of hoping that this is one of those things that they stick to for a little while. Maybe they officially induct PAC into there, or maybe they just don't drop the titles in like 3 weeks like they've been doing with some other things. If they did it just for the sake of giving PAC a championship in London, then that's kind of strange to me, but it's very much a possibility too. So I don't know how that is going to play out into the future, because also right now I can't think of any other trios that are jumping out to me as like the guaranteed next champions, but I'm going to put it out there that the Learning Tree are going to win those belts next. So we'll see about my prediction, but thumbs up for this match. And if they continue to do this going forward, I don't think it should be something that they do like annually every year or anything, but they certainly can just keep throwing people into multi-man ladder matches. And even if it's 3-on-3-on-3-on-3 with a bunch of people on ringside that are managers and stuff, hey, it worked out. Well, I wasn't the biggest fan of the next match overall. Mariah May won the AEW Women's World Championship from Timeless Toni Storm. I have talked ad nauseum about how the women's division in AEW really doesn't do much for me, and that Toni Storm's character, even though I know that she's very talented, I don't connect with her story and her storytelling and the way that those matches play out and all. I wasn't super feeling the Mariah May thing either. I was at first when they were feuding and the storyline was, kind of in its Pangea stage of kind of like putting all the elements together and then separating everybody. But I eventually stopped really caring. And at this point, sure, give the title to Mariah May and she'll do whatever with it. But it kind of makes me feel like this should be the mid-card championship instead. So maybe we're seeing a shift. It's not going to be a shift overall because in the grand scheme of things, you would assume if they needed to merge belts, they would get rid of the TBS championships. But I think that the TBS title is definitely being prioritized because it's on Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm. And then now Mariah May. Mariah May is not going to be booked in the same way as Mercedes Moné is. And both the women's champions are just MM names. I just realized that. So Mariah May and Mercedes Moné, it's going to be hard to say 10 times fast. You look at those two and I'm like, all right, Mariah May should be the mid-card champion and Mercedes should be their world champion. And it's not the case, but AEW has 3 mid-card championships for the men. So, when they're planning this out, I don't think that they're necessarily going like, well, we have to sit this person under that person on the totem pole. You know what I mean? Guest 5 saying, at least it was better than the women's match for the TBS title. We'll get around to that. So we, at this point, have had one title change, and it was followed up immediately afterward with the last chance match for the FTW Championship, where Hook beats Chris Jericho, who did a Fozzy musical performance to do his entrance, and I was not a fan of that. That just felt awkward to me, and the match itself didn't do much for me either. It was fine. I can't tell you anything that happened in it except for Taz getting involved and stopping a little bit of outside interference, but Brian Keith did get involved. Big Bill did get involved. Hook makes Jericho tap out. It seems like it should be the end of this story, but it might not be for all we know. I can't imagine that they continue this going forward since Hook just won the title back, and why are they going to have Jericho continue to feud with that or whatever? So that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of thinking that the learning tree is going to go for the World Trios Championships next. They have 3 members. Jericho's never going to not have something to do, and if he's not feuding with Hook anymore, nobody else has been set up yet. Not that that's been set up for the World Trios titles in any way whatsoever, but I think we're going to, over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to see something like that kind of play out. So even though Jericho's feuded with the Blackpool Combat Club and, there's a few other trios that might be able to get title shots first, maybe Jericho and them take a back seat and then come back around to it. Oh, we got a super chat from Marco. Hey, Tony, hope your day is going well. Hope your day is going well too, Marco. I hope you enjoyed the pay-per-view and stuff. Let us know what you thought. That FTW title does not mean crap. Is that what this says? This is not completely covered up on my end. It's hard for me to actually see this because for some reason a little emoji icon is covering up what half the message is. That's YouTube for you. The FTW title needs to go away. I've been saying that for a while. It's something else for people to feud for and over, and that's, it serves a purpose, but we have 3 mid-card championships for the men. And the International and the Continental and the TNT title all feel like they're the same. The FTW title does feel a little bit different when they do the FTW rules, but if they don't do FTW rules every match, then it's no different whatsoever than the other ones, because then you're just having regular matches. And also, unless they convert that over to a hardcore championship, or the FTW rules title is on that perpetually, not 24/7 title or whatever like that, but you know what I mean. Unless they do something gimmicky with it, it's just a lesser championship to fight for. And I'm fine with Hook just getting rid of it and saying, I'm abandoning that and going for some other titles and make him one of the next potential challengers for another thing going forward, I still kind of want Hook to go to WWE, but that's a different story. So title change after title change, and then there is the 3-way for the AEW World Tag Team titles. But the Young Bucks actually retained that title over the Acclaimed and FTR. That is not too surprising. I mentioned that when we were talking about that on our predictions, that I just assumed that the Elite weren't going to be dropping their titles. So that part of it, called that from a mile away. Did not anticipate that the Grizzled Young Veterans would pop up afterward, and they are basically putting their names out there as wanting the next title shot. But they wound up attacking everybody else except for the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks just like booked it out of there. So, yeah, in the future, we're going to see James Drake and Zach Gibson up against the Young Bucks, and I'm sure that that's going to be a really good match. So, I'm down for that. But I don't know if I would go with them as being like, oh, okay, then they're probably going to win those titles. I think that they're probably still going to retain whenever that happens. Unless that happens like 5 months from now, because it takes the Young Bucks a long time to defend their titles. So maybe that's going to be like full gear. And by the time we come back around with that, it might be time to switch to the champions. But the Casino Gauntlet match was next. And that was my one at this point of the card. This was my favorite match of the night. Eventually something happened a little bit later that ended up surpassing it. But the Casino Gauntlet for this was built on this idea that Orange Cassidy was going to start the match. And we knew a few of the other people that were going to be in there, but we didn't know everybody. We didn't even know how many people necessarily were going to be in the match. So that was already built in, this idea of surprises. And I mean, when they go with the whole like at random intervals thing, even the random intervals were very random or very manufactured, I guess you could say. 90 seconds for Royal Rumble entrance, and in this one there were instances where nobody came out for multiple minutes, and then there was, I forget who it was, if it was Kyle O'Reilly and the person who followed him, or if it was Roderick Strong and Mark Briscoe. It was like maybe 20 seconds or something. It felt like somebody's going to have to do the math for this, but I thought that was pretty interesting because it just sort of went like, all right, screw it. We just need to move it over and, to speed it up and then slow it down and speed it up and slow it down. But for everybody who's curious about the order of this, it was Orange Cassidy starting off with Kazuchika Okada, which that's good. They got him on the card. Great way of doing it. Third person was Nigel McGuinness, which is actually one of the biggest shocks of the entire night because Nigel was retired for how long? I mean, it's been actually, let me look that up on Cage Match right now. So Cage Match, Nigel McGuinness, I'm pretty sure he hasn't wrestled since something like 2012 or so let's double check. His last match was against TJ Phillips. I don't know who that is, and that was at the APWA third annual Holiday Grand Prix Tag 2 event in West Virginia on December 17th, 2011. So it's been 13 years almost since he's wrestled. And, being forced to retire and not being able to do that for all this years, that's kind of crazy that he was able to come back. So that's really cool. Hopefully it means he can wrestle going forward and we can get to see some other matches and all from him. But even if this is the last one, even though it might not be the send-off that he would want to go out with, like him against Bryan Danielson or I don't know, Christopher Daniels or wherever he might end up wanting to go up against in like a singles match, it was still a really cool moment to have him come out and be able to do that. He was followed by Kyle O'Reilly, who was followed by Zack Sabre Jr., another surprise entrant, the winner of the G1 Climax. And they're going to be challenging for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at the next New Japan show, the King of Pro Wrestling in October, whatever it is. I don't know, we talked about it on the Hot Tags. So Zack Sabre Jr., strong presence there, big feud with Orange Cassidy, so they played off of that a little bit. He was followed by Roderick Strong, then Mark Briscoe, then Hangman Page. Jeff Jarrett followed him, so he's got some issues with Hangman Page. They did a whole guitar shot and all. Then Ricochet, making his surprise debut in AEW. Cool font, much better font, I think, on the Titantron. Or they don't call it the Titantron, but then the WWE one. Never liked the WWE logo for Ricochet. Couldn't tell you about his theme, though. Don't remember it already. And then Christian Cage, and then Luchasaurus is what he came out to, not Killswitch. And it seemed at first that they were going to do something where, based off of them losing the trios titles, that Killswitch would have reverted back to Luchasaurus, and he was going to screw over Christian, and then somebody else was going to win. But he pretty quickly slammed down Kyle O'Reilly, put Christian Cage on top of him, and Christian actually walked out of this with the title shot. They did specify the title shot is for whenever, So they don't need to have Christian Cage against whoever the champion is, if you don't already know, at All Out. They could wait. They could do it at Dynamite. They could do it at Collision. They could do like a Money in the Bank type of thing, although they've never done that, I think, in AEW. Every like championship match whenever you want thing has been something that somebody has requested in advance. They've not done like a cash-in thing, or at least I can't remember them doing that. If they did, they probably did it like once out of like 8 or 9 times that they've had this scenario. So I'm assuming Christian Cage is not going to be fighting for the championship at All Out. I think that he's probably going to be doing that match some other time on like a TV show thing or something. And maybe that is dependent upon how they want to do things with Darby Allin and the Grand Slam thing and all. So we'll find out more about that. But the Casino Gauntlet match I thought was very, very fun. I thought that the surprises were really cool for it. Some of the best highlights of the entire show. And even though Christian isn't the person that I would have necessarily gone with, the fact that they did that is something that I didn't anticipate. So, surprising outcome like that, that's pretty interesting too. So that was a, positive thing to, you're heading up towards that kind of stuff. How are you going to follow that up? Well, they had the American Championship match, MJF defending against Will Ospreay, and that ends up being an even better match than the Casino Gauntlet. Will Ospreay comes out on top. He wins the now reverted back to the AEW International Championship with a little bit of help from Daniel Garcia. And that is also something that is another news story in and of itself. Daniel Garcia, you got to assume, re-signed with AEW in order to have this whole setup, because he had been on like a contract negotiation situation, possibly going to WWE, possibly not. Who knows? Not much information. For him to pop up here and to do this, you got to assume that he has re-signed and that the plan is going to be MJF versus Daniel Garcia at All Out. And Will Ospreay goes on to defend his international championship, get rid of the AEW American Championship. He'll end up fighting Pac, the 1/3 of the new World Trios champions. So that also means more than likely the World Trios titles are not going to be defended at All Out, because Pac shouldn't be doing double duty for that. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. It's happened before, but it's very rare. So Pac versus Ospreay should be a good match. Garcia versus MJF should be a good match. The American Championship thing, I don't know if you consider that a success or not. I don't think that that's necessarily something that resonated super well with me, but the crowd, they were excited about the return of the international title, so I guess it worked. I don't know. But I liked the match a lot. I thought this was actually one of the absolute best matches of the night, and it just happened to be followed up by Mercedes Moné retaining the AEW TBS Championship over Dr. Britt Baker. And the Jermaine in the chat, can we get Mercedes versus Shida now, the real match? I could see people who are big fans of either of them trying to make an argument that this was a really good match, but I mostly saw people saying this match is ass. And I didn't think that it was like the worst thing ever, but there were sloppy spots, and I'm just not digging Mercedes in AEW. This feud hasn't been great. I don't like her finisher. I hate her theme song. I don't like her character, even though it's basically the same character as Sasha Banks, but I got over that for a while, a long time ago too. I don't know. What's the ticking clock for when Camille just turns on Mercedes? Is that the only interesting thing that we have to look forward to? Because it kind of feels like that to me. So that was kind of a stinker. They followed it up with a good match, though. Coffin match for the AEW TNT title. And Jack Perry wins his, I believe, second coffin match. And Darby Allin has now lost his first match. Good match. Not as great as I was hoping that it would be in some ways. I thought that the ending was a little bit lackluster, but they kind of made up for it. It ended up being Jack Perry putting Darby Allin in a body bag, then putting him in the casket, and then dumping, with a little bit of help from the Elite, for the Young Bucks, dumping gasoline on there and threatening that he was going to light him on fire, because that's been a whole big thing, which kind of makes me feel like, all right, well then, how do you go from here to a future continued feud with Jack Perry and Darby Allin? Probably an Inferno match. We haven't seen that in AEW, so maybe they can do that, and that's another way for Darby Allin to try to kill himself, basically. But the coffin match setup was also to bring Sting out. Sting makes the save. He takes out the Young Bucks. Darby Allin gets saved, and Jack Perry runs off and all. So Sting got a big pop moment. Crowd loved that, and I'm totally down for Jack Perry retaining this title. I mentioned before, I think that the Elite shouldn't be dropping their championships until the end of whatever this feud is with the Elite and AEW that hasn't really been doing great in the past month or so. So they need to kind of boost that up a little bit. And one way to do that is to not take the championship away from somebody, because that would just lose momentum. So I think it's the right call. I think that Darby Allin has no problem losing this whatsoever. And that, if he wants to keep fighting for that championship, then they can continue to do that in some kind of a fire thing. If they want to move on, they can do that too. He's got the Grand Slam title match coming up, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But it's not like that's happening next week. So, I brought up at the main event. Then, I'm already speeding through this. That was title versus career singles match for the AEW World Championship. Swerve Strickland defending against the American Dragon, and Bryan Danielson comes out on top by submission, wins the championship. There's a little bit of interference from Hangman Adam Page, who is super pissed off that he didn't win the gauntlet and, continues to want to go after Swerve Strickland. So my gut reaction is I'm happy that Danielson won this championship. I'm hoping, of course, that there's no complications that end up happening that kind of screw this up and, mess up this championship reign for whatever they have planned. But I'm always hesitant to trust that that's not going to happen with Danielson. So we're going to have to see where the future of this goes. But I like the idea of him being the champion. I like the idea of Swerve not necessarily being a full heel in this, but playing heel to get the crowd to do that. And he's probably going to go and feud with Hangman Page again after this. All Out, Page versus Strickland in a number one contenders match or something. Or, Texas Death Match or whatever they want to do along those lines. But Danielson's next challenger could be Christian Cage, or it could be somebody else. Just a new person steps up and fights for the title, or it's a rematch. I think that the worst case scenario is a rematch. If Swerve and Danielson have another match, I think it should be at Wrestle Dream in Tacoma at the end of the year, or whenever that is. I don't remember when that is. Full Gear's in November, and Wrestle Dream, I guess, would be October because of World's End being in December. So I guess that makes sense. So, Tacoma is, I believe, where Swerve Strickland is from. Maybe that's how this ends, is he puts over Danielson and then Danielson puts him over and they kind of balance that back around. Darby Allin could win it at Grand Slam, or he could win it at Wrestle Dream, and that could just be another thing you lose your first chance at that, and then you earn it back again, and then you end up winning the championship the second time around. I don't know who I would pick more as what I would prefer. I kind of lean a little bit towards Darby Allin. And if you've not really been super duper Darby Allin needs to win that championship, but I think between the two, I'd rather probably have Allin beat Danielson than to have Strickland beat Danielson. Maybe they're going to change my mind along the way. I don't know. Or maybe it's going to be somebody else completely different. But I think I would probably go in that direction. And in the meantime, maybe Hangman Page does get another title shot. And maybe he is somebody who they can put the title on. Probably not where I'd go. In the meantime, they do have All Out coming up on September 7th. So they have to build to something pretty quickly. And I can't picture that Danielson's not going to defend that championship. Nor do I figure that he's going to suddenly be that's where the Nigel McGuinness match happens, or that's where they take the title from him or something. So it could be a filler thing, and there are plenty of people that they could throw in there for a filler number one contenders match or something. I'd be fine with them just going as simple as Christian Cage does say, I want this championship match at All Out, and they get it out of the way as quickly as possible, because I'm sure that match will be really good too. So great main event, great match, good moment for everything. I think it's the right call. And overall, the pay-per-view, lots of pretty much solid matches. None of them really awful or anything. Some of them, I would say if you missed it, you didn't miss anything, go ahead and skip it, like the Mercedes Moné match. Some of them, I think, if you did miss it, you should go back and check out, like the Casino Gauntlet, Will Ospreay and MJF, and the main event. In the meantime, overall, a pay-per-view that is kind of what I expected from it. So if you are a super big fan of the pay-per-views, like I'm sure that Callum is flying high right now, thinking that this is like, you know, one of the best shows that he's ever been to and stuff, then that fits the mold. If you are somebody who is a pure WWE fan, you only like the way that they do things, then I'm sure that there are definitely some issues that you have with this, whether it's the pacing or just the style of the matches and all. I don't know how much more I can go into detail here. The surprises were fun, and those are interesting story beats that we're going to follow going forward, so that's cool too. And I'd overall give it a thumbs up. It's not going to be my, like, every category, write this down as the best of everything at the end of the year awards or something, but I'm going to probably add a few notes right after I get done doing this to, like, you know, potential match of the year things, potential surprises of the year, that kind of stuff. So I think it was a good thing. And seems like the response from most people is that they like the pay-per-view overall, so that's cool too. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. So make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below on YouTube. If you're listening to this outside of YouTube and you are, you know, on Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes or whatever it might be, then hop on over to the tons of other different means for you to be able to leave your comment. You got Facebook groups, you got the Discord server, Facebook at Tony Mango, at Smark Moment. You got the Twitter accounts, you got the pages on smarkoutmoment.com. So many different ways for you to leave your thoughts. So definitely let us know what you think. And we will continue on with the pay-per-view point stuff with next week, because we have 2 WWE pay-per-views coming up next week. We're going to have the WWE Bash in Berlin, followed by NXT No Mercy pay-per-views. So it's going to be another doubled up week for pay-per-view predictions, and then the hot tags, and then the post shows for that. Not 100% sure how we're going to balance out what we're going to be doing for that, but depending on what the schedules are like and, you know, the availability and interest level and stuff is, I think that there's probably a good chance that we might end up merging something with something. Like maybe we end up doing Bash in Berlin predictions on like Wednesday, and then on Friday we just do NXT, or maybe we do NXT predictions. Rob and I just do it right after NXT on Tuesday night or something. Stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed. Ring that notification bell for email alerts when we go live for things like this. Set up any other kind of things that you want to follow. What it's, fanboysanonymous.com, or it's the it's marketplace stuff, or it's the Linktree stuff. You can find at amangotree.com or anthonymango.com. Has links to Smark Out Moment content and Fanboys Anonymous content and all sorts of other different things like My Letterboxd and Collider and What Culture and all that. But follow those things. Stay tuned as well to updates on the WWE Fantasy League from when next time that Callum's working on that. And we will, of course, be talking more pay-per-view type of content with all the WWE stuff coming up, but another round of the hot tags after that too. And I guess that's when we'll be seeing you guys next. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscriptions, donations, whatever it might be. And I'll see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.